Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Central Texas Living with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ann Harder. Welcome to Central Texas Living, the podcast. We're on video today, and it's because it's a very special day. We are welcoming former U.S. Congressman Bill Flores and his beautiful wife, Gina, with us. It's our chance to kind of get an overview of his 10 years of service in Washington and then find out from Gina what it's like to have that very important supportive role as wife. So it's good to have you both here with us. Retirement. What do the days look like for you now?
Awesome.
Bill? Yeah, we were just talking about, we're dressed up for another event that's going to happen later this evening. But, and I said, I can't remember when I had a dress and heels on. It's been a while. So for you too, mostly Hawaiian shirts and shorts?
Hawaiian shirts, cargo pants, and usually Croc shoes. So except for yesterday, I had to put a suit on for the first time in quite a while. I'm working on getting appointed to some corporate boards. And so I had to go to Houston yesterday for a couple of meetings and interviews on that.
Well, I'm wondering because you've not totally retired from a professional life. No. So what does that all entail for you?
Well, let me give you kind of an overview of what Bill 3.0 looks like, because we just finished the design work on that. It obviously involves more family time, more time with Gina, more time with our grandkids, and in particular, more time with my parents. We also, I want to get involved in some of the not-for-profit activities in community, which I kind of had to step away from for a while when I was in office. And then lastly, from a professional standpoint, I'd like to get on 2 or 3 corporate boards to try to keep my ear to the, basically be back in the private sector and try to add value to society.
Of course, you're a successful businessman before you decided to run for Congress. Gina, we had tried to get you on Central Texas Living, the TV show, when that was still going on at Channel 25, because I really just wanted to pick your brain. What's it like to be married to a congressman? I know your days were filled, but also you were splitting time between D.C. and the Bryan-College Station area where y'all live.
Right, exactly. In Republican women, you get to log your hours that you use to serving another person that's in office.
Oh, really?
And so they report those to the state. And so I would always keep track of every hour that I spent on the road.
A jillion, I guess.
For him. And it would be sometimes over 300 hours a quarter.
Oh, wow.
With 12 counties, you can stay as busy as you want to be. And so I would be on the road a lot for him. And then when I would go to D.C., it was fun. I would only go if there was a reason to go, if there was a banquet or something.
I'm sure there were a lot of dressy events.
And those were a lot of fun. I'm a little bit more of an introvert, though. So I would always tell him, walking into a big group of people, I would tell him sometimes I just want to turn around and walk out because it would be so many people that I didn't know. But, after a few years, you kind of get used to the routine of going back and forth. I only went about once a month. And I'd have a routine when I'd get up in the morning. I'd walk down to the National Mall, and I'd walk down to the Capitol, and I'd walk back to the Washington Monument, and I'd go in the back of Trump Tower, and I'd get a cup of coffee, and then I'd go back to the apartment and then decide what I was going to do for the rest of the day. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was. We will always joke and say that how did 2 kids from Stratford get to do this kind of thing?
So you guys have known each other a long time. High school sweethearts?
No.
Her parents wouldn't let me date her.
My dad was the school superintendent, and he drove his mom's station wagon too fast and drank beer on the weekends.
I was a fun-loving Catholic boy.
Didn't really sound that bad anymore, but so Daddy, being the superintendent, knowing the kind of trouble he got into, didn't let me date him. So we didn't date until I was a junior in college.
Okay.
So we weren't high school sweethearts.
Okay, but maybe could have been.
It could have been.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
Probably
I
would've
dated
been
his
hard to-
best friend and his brother, but I couldn't date him.
Well, long marriage though.
43
Shall
years.
we say? Yeah.
43
Well,
years.
congratulations.
Thank
That's what kind of strains though did you feel during this political service? On your
Oh, my
marriage,
goodness.
maybe. Were there any?
Yes.
I mean, do you
Well,
agree politically on everything?
Pretty much.
much.
Okay.
pretty-
Well, and that's good.
Pretty
Yeah.
much. But there were times that I would call him and say, please don't vote. I'm going to be mad at you if you vote that way. And he would do it anyway, and then come home and explain to me like any other constituent why he voted the way he did. But we didn't always agree. I would say we probably agreed
99% of the time.
no,
probably.
most of the time. But there were times that we didn't always agree. And it's hard when your husband's in the spotlight and under the microscope. And I learned to not read things on social media. It took me a couple of years to learn that, but I spent a lot of time wanting to fight somebody. But
Well, yeah, you got to be very angry. When people
would
say what you know to be untruths.
Well, and what always astonished me is that you would say, well, what would you do? They always want to complain, but they don't offer a solution. So I would say, well, what would you suggest? And then they would usually deflect and say, well, I don't get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. And I would say, but if you're going to complain, you've got to offer a solution.
Right.
You need to offer a solution.
Yeah.
And so that was the most frustrating thing to me, was just to see the endless complaints, but no offers of, well, this is what I think you should do. So that was hard for me, but I got better as the years went on at being a little calmer about all of it, I think.
Well,
I think.
and I know people contact their congressman for issues. What's one of the craziest things that anybody wanted you to handle? Can you think of something?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, the ones that were the hardest to explain to some constituents, they want you to come. They'd ask you to do something that was outside of the scope of the federal government. So it was a state issue like property taxes, or helping with a license plate, or a state adoption, things like that. I mean, we had some interesting requests. I'm not going to call any of them crazy, because
yeah, there
every
were
time
problems
They
to
were
them.
problems.
exactly every
Yeah.
time a constituent called and they had an issue, we tried to, if it was outside the scope of our job as a federal representative, we would try to get them in touch with the right state or local person to deal with those issues. But we had some pretty interesting ones. And then, of course, as with any population, you're going to have some people have some interesting ideas about things. And there are a lot of conspiracies I had to listen to over the years.
Oh, you wondered if the tinfoil was out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say that, but yeah, I mean, I thought it sometimes.
Well, it might be difficult for you to pick a highlight
Uh-huh.
of your tenure in Washington, but does anything come to mind, or maybe a few things?
Yes. Let me say this from, I guess, from the standpoint of a couple of kids from Stratford, as Gina was saying before. The thing I still remember was about 10 days after we were first elected in November of 2010, we were invited to go to Washington, as were all the incoming freshman representatives. And we were I was part of a class of 89 Republican freshmen, a great big class. And we had a dinner. We were taken to the Capitol in buses, and we were dropped off. It was a cold winter day, and you looked up and the Capitol was, lit up. And we went and had dinner in Statuary Hall. And that was the old House chamber. And if you think about the decisions that had to be made there, from ending of slavery to the discussions about the Civil War to the setting up our government initially back in 1789, it was just a very emotional and humbling experience. So that's, from that standpoint, the emotional side. In terms of things that we were able to do, you can break them into several pieces. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can do sort of national macro impact, Texas impact, district impact, McLennan County, Waco, so forth. Let's start close to home. If you think about the explosion that happened in West, initially, President Obama didn't want to have FEMA respond to help the community out. I mean, he wanted to help with the impact of the disaster in terms of let's try to get, if there's anybody buried in rubble, get them out. That's
Right.
kind of stuff. And that was done pretty quickly. That was mostly done by our local first responders. But in terms of, long-term help, how do we rebuild the community? He didn't want to help. And so we led the effort working with Senator Cornyn and Senator Hutchison and got every Democrat and every Republican to sign on to put pressure on the president to respond, and he did. And if you look at the community of West now, you take the main thing that helped that community respond, which was the people of West, and you add it with the local support that came from McLennan County's leadership, which was awesome through that, and then the federal help that just helped bring it all together. And you look at West now, it's incredible.
Yeah, so many houses were damaged, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the water system was damaged.
Had to be rebuilt. I mean, there was that nursing home, and there was so much damage.
Right. And I remember going and walking the streets, and I'd get in the mayor's he has an old Ford pickup.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We'd drive the streets, and he would call me every couple of years, say, I want you to come back because I want to retrace that same route and show you what we've been able to do. And so, again, the combination of the community plus the local leadership here in McLennan County plus the federal support is really, I think, changed a lot of people's lives. So that's sort of the close to home. If I look at the biggest thing that I think we were able to affect on a national scale was to help lift the restriction on the export of U.S. oil and gas. So we were there was another Texas congressperson that had this as his objective for a long time, and he had done quite a lot, but he was sort of hitting a roadblock. And so Speaker Boehner came to me and said, can you help us get it across the finish line? And so I was part of that effort. And if you think about the impact that's been on the U.S. economy and U.S. energy dominance and Texas as a whole, it was incredible. To show you how the free market works, President Obama signed that legislation one day in December, and the first cargo of U.S. crude left to head to Europe 18 days later from Corpus Christi.
So it was ready to go.
It was ready to go. The American industry and American capitalistic system was ready to respond to that, and it's created tens of thousands of jobs in this country by being able to open up new markets for U.S. exploration and production.
Gina, for you, highlight you can think of?
Well, we got to do a lot of travel, and people think, well, you just get on a plane and you go and you just have a lot of fun, but they were all working trips, and you come back really exhausted. And I remember that we got to go to China as part of a bipartisan group, and we didn't meet with Xi Jinping, but we got to meet with the number 2, number 3, and number 4 person in the country, and there again to sit in. With the people there and be able to, of course, we sat on the back row, the members sat in front and the spouses sat behind, but to be able to sit there and listen to the things that are going on in the world, again, you just have to pinch yourself a little bit and think,
happening.
I can't believe that I'm in China across the street from the Forbidden City, and we're able to meet with all of these people and tell them, some of the things that are on our mind, and they told us what was on their mind as well. Yeah. So, but that was always really, really fun. Bill was on the House Democracy Committee, and so we got to go to several different countries around the world that had budding democracies, and we got to visit with them and they were in various stages of their democracies, and it was fun to go to some of those countries and visit with them about what was going on in their country at the time. And so those were really, those are just things that you would never dream that you could do in a lifetime. And I think I probably we figured it up one time, 20-something countries. Wow. Bill's been to a lot more than that, but I got to go with them to 29 countries. So that was always a real treat to get to go and represent the United States.
Yeah, I can see you saying you just pinch yourself. Yeah. Any lowlights?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Lots of lowlights. Of course, I wasn't in office at the time, but on January 6th, when the Capitol was stormed, I felt like that was a low light in the history of our country and history of our republic. The other two things, the lack of desire of the two parties to work together, I think.
We've talked about that before.
Is destructive. Yeah. The fact that Republicans would like to fight each other a lot, I thought was destructive. It seemed like there was always a constant quest for the perfect piece of legislation, and there's nothing in life that's perfect. And so perfect became the enemy of the
Isn't
good.
politics really the art of compromise?
Yes, and see that's unfortunate because people think that compromise is a bad word, and it's not. If you can get 80% of something, it's a lot better than us insisting on 100% and getting zero.
Yeah.
And so every time that my side of the aisle would fight among itself in the House, we would typically wind up with a worse solution than we would have had we could all agree together on being more reasonable. And I think the American people suffered because Republicans were fighting. The American people certainly suffer because the two parties won't talk to each other. And I think that what you see in Washington today is a reflection of what you see in society. You've heard me tell the story before. When I first started running for office back in late 2009, somebody would write something nasty about me on social media, and I would see them face to face, and we could have a mature and cordial and friendly conversation. We'd disagree, but it was friendly. But today, the behavior you see in social media is morphed over into what we have in terms of interpersonal relationships. And so, I mean, and you see it all the time. I mean, you saw it happen in Washington on the 6th, where people act out the same way in person. I mean, we've become coarse as a society instead of finding a way to work together. And I think that we as a country are going to have some sort of what I call a significant emotional event to cause us to break down those barriers and come back together. And we need to find a way to work together on what we agree on, and then figure out how we can come back to work on what we disagree upon.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Gina?
I would agree. I think just the lack of civility between Republicans and Democrats, and then between Republicans as well. I think everybody's going to have to, like Bill said, there needs to be a reset. We've got to find a way to learn to get along and have our differences without that bleeding over into relationships with one another. And I don't know how we do. I don't know how we do that, but that's something that bothers me. I think to me, a low would have been when we weren't able to repeal Obamacare. I think sometimes constituents forget that Bill's one of, counting the Senate and Congress, 535.
Yeah.
And they wanted him single-handedly to be sure that Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, got taken back. And he tried, but he's only one. And I still think we have some in our own party that are mad at him because he didn't get that repealed. And that bothers me a little bit, that people don't really understand the way it works. I always wanted to say, what did you want him to do? Specifically as one person to get it repealed, because he voted every time to do it, but because he's only one, it's impossible. But some people have a hard time understanding that, and that was hard for me when he would get the criticism for that, because there really was one vote was all he ever had.
Right.
So
It was we.
Right.
it was we. Yeah, it's true.
All right. Well,
Gina and the other 700,000 constituents in the district, and me.
Well, I always say we because I tell people this job is like being married to a pastor.
I would think so.
You have to. We've seen a lot of marriages, unfortunately, in D.C. break up because I don't think the couples understood what they were getting into, and I think you've got to have total buy-in with the spouse, whether it's a husband that's a spouse or a wife, because otherwise it's going to be really hard. Because there are a lot of times, where his job has to come first, and I think you have to have a buy-in that we're going to get through it. We're going to be united front when we're in public, and we can discuss it when we get home. But it really is. I tell people it's like being married to a pastor.
Well, when we come back, we are going to delve a little more deeply into what you guys think about different things. So stay with us. Back again. What advice do you have for your successor, Congressman Sessions?
My advice is to listen to the constituents and to always remember that it takes a team in Washington to get anything done. You see a lot of people on Fox News that get up there and they say, I can do this, I can do that, or we can do this, but they have to remember that we is at least 218 votes. And sometimes we means that you have to reach across the aisle and talk to somebody on the other side of the aisle. And so just work as a team, listen to constituents, and stay close to the Constitution, and you'll never go wrong.
That's right. Anything happened during Bill's tenure in office that you thought, man, this is over the top. This is just something I can't.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
You did tell me you kind of got burned by a reporter once.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
I'm asking selfishly because you said this is your first interview you've done.
And since it was it 2011 or 2012? I can't remember when that was.
Yeah,
it was very early on in Bill's tenure, and I came to Waco because the Tea Party was bringing letters that they wanted Bill to take to President Obama. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
seems right.
Several different media outlets were there, and they filmed, and they asked me for a comment at the end of the time that we were together. And so I gave them one. And that night, naively, I watched the news and I realized that it had been edited to look like the Tea Party was upset with him and they were bringing letters to be given to Bill instead of to President Obama. And so I just kind of made a promise to myself that I would never make any comments to the media again. And today's the first time in 10 years, almost 10 years, that I have talked to anybody because I was so taken aback that it was edited that way. And I never want to, what I said wasn't taken out of context, but I never wanted it to ever be that way. So I just made a decision never to make a comment to the media. And it probably, since I kind of want to fight people sometimes over different things, it's probably better that I made that promise to myself not to do it.
Let me tell you about another promise you made. Or let me say it's a promise that I made that we ultimately revoked when we were going through the discussion about whether or not to run at all. Gina, signed off. She said, "But I never want to have to make a speech."
Oh gosh!
And she has made a lot of speeches, and
say,
she has won a lot of fans.
I'm sure she
has.
Because
we, eventually we got to the point where there just weren't enough of us. I mean, you'd have all of your district staff out running, doing things, and so Gina said, "Okay, I'll do it." And the audiences loved her.
Yeah,
she was great.
I don't know about that, but when you have 12 counties, it's hard. We didn't have 12 people between our three offices at the time to be able to all go out and be in the spotlight. So I agreed to do that. And, we're talking about the advice you would give to Congressman Sessions. I would just advise him. It's hard when you have 12 counties. He had one before, and I would just encourage him to really learn the district because it's a very diverse district.
It is.
It's got urban areas, it's got agricultural areas, large communities, small communities, and that would be my advice to him. Is it's just very different from his last district. So just be sure that you get to know the people in the district. And they're great
not a newcomer
people.
To Washington.
No.
He's been in there before, so some of those ropes he's already. Mm-hmm. He already knows for sure. What about, I presume he's married. I don't know, his spouse, yeah?
Yes, Karen.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a place here and they have a place in Florida. And I don't know about in D.C., but I know he's spending a lot of time in the district. And I would just encourage him to get to know the people because they're great people.
Oh, well, I would have to agree with you there for sure. Well, I like to end these visits with a questionnaire. It's similar to the one that the late James Lipton would ask on Inside the Actors Studio. I don't know if that TV show means anything to you or not, but it's a sort of a question. It's very simple. It's okay, but I'm going to ask each one of you. Okay, Bill, what is your favorite word?
Teamwork.
Yeah, I would think as a running campaigns and so forth, it's crucial that you have people you can count on and trust and work together.
Well, the key to success in this job is teamwork. And I guess my other favorite word would be 2 words: selfless servant. If you really want to do this job right, you're going to listen, you're going to work together as a team, and you're going to remember that you serve them. The almost 850,000 people that I represented in this district, I worked for them. And a lot of Congress critters forget that, and they think that they are the center of the universe. And I worked with more narcissists per capita up there than anywhere in the world. And it was ugly. And if everybody would just remember, you put your pants on the same way every day, your skirt or whatever it is, and that you're no better, no worse than anybody else. I think if Washington worked that way, our country would be a lot better off today.
Gina, you have a favorite word?
Well, the first word that came to my mind, especially when it relates to this job, is integrity. If you can have integrity, then you're going to be able to do all the things that he just said.
And I think you always were a proponent of term limits, right?
I was. I am.
Yeah.
I was and am. And I lived it.
And you did. And you have lived it because, I mean, you're young-ish and certainly could have gone on. Some,
still immature.
You're still very... So, yeah, I mean, you kept that. You kept that promise for sure. What is your least favorite word?
Narcissism.
Yeah.
And again, the reason I say that, narcissism kills Washington. It kills good public policy. Narcissists don't work with each other. Narcissists don't talk to each other. Narcissists look in the mirror and they see somebody totally different than the way the rest of the world sees them. And so narcissism is destructive. And it is, if it's unchecked, it's going to be fatal to our republic and to our democracy.
I can tell we've been married a long time.
Yeah.
And have lived this together for 10 years. I would say hypocritical. People that are hypocritical, again, are going to wind up with the same kind of issues because they're going to say one thing, but they're going to do something else. And people see that. People see whether you're genuine or not. So I would say my least favorite is hypocritical.
So, Bill, what turns you on creatively, emotionally, or spiritually?
This answer's going to sound strange. I love to fly. I'm a pilot. So
yeah, and I heard you got another plane, and
no,
you were all over Facebook saying you weren't sure Gina was going to be on board with that. Or
that's part of my campaign. I haven't won a battle on that one yet. But,
I was wondering about that. The status of that plane you were looking at.
And I know that sounds like a weird answer, but I love to fly. And when you're up in the air at 25,000 feet and you're just buzzing along, and it's let's say you're in a part of the country where there's not a lot of other air traffic, and so you don't hear the controllers talking much. It's almost like you're at one with God, and you get to look at all this handiwork down below you and the handiwork above you, and I just think, so flying is where it is the thing that drives me, and it's the thing where I feel like I'm most attached to what God has done for this world.
Very neat. What about you, Gina?
Well, you'll relate to this, grandchildren.
Oh, yeah.
All of our grandchildren have come since Bill's been in office. And when Britton was born, she was born 10 years ago last week.
Yeah.
And I told him after she was born, I said, okay, I love you and I'm going to support you in your job, but I'm going to go see the baby. And I've pretty much gone to see them every month for the last 10 years because I can only be away for about 4 weeks and my heart can't stand it. So
I get that. What turns you off then creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
What turns me off? Why don't you go to Gina on that one?
Oh,
Give me a second.
Oh, what turns me off? I guess what turns me off, this again probably sounds kind of nutty too, is I'm very organized. and I can get really overwhelmed with a long to-do list. And so I think for me, having more things to do in a day than I can handle is a real turnoff to me. And I had a lot of that for the last 10 years. And so
I bet you have.
it's been a little bit nice to, at least with the long list of things now, it's things that I kind of want to do. But that's just kind of the first thing that came to my mind is just having too much to do in a day is really hard for me.
My answer is social media. It turns me off. First of all, I think from a societal standpoint, it has damaged us as a society. I mean, if you watch the documentary called The Social Dilemma.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
scary.
I know a lot of people that is scary. If you think about the amount of power, the amount of influence that it has over people, I think about the impact that it has on teenagers and the pressure that is put on teenagers and the increase in suicide that's happened because of that. I think of the time sink that it is. I think of how much time people spend and they get hooked into it. I know that on January the 3rd, I had 3 Facebook accounts, 3 Twitter accounts, and I had an Instagram account. I turned all of them off.
Did you?
I did. I killed all of them except my personal Facebook. And you don't see me post anything nasty on it. I just post, post about my desires for airplanes.
Yes, that's where I saw that.
And then, of course, I posted things the lead up to Christmas, the light and fluffy stuff. And then
to me, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
That and to have a birthday, you feel so celebrated.
Yeah, exactly.
All these people wish you happy birthday.
Yeah, I wished you happy birthday.
Yeah, I know you did. I wish you a happy birthday.
You did.
So, I mean, that's kind of what it's a connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely has a very, very dark side.
It does.
And it's amazing how quickly you can post something that you think is fairly lighthearted. It's amazing how it can be taken to the dark side.
I know.
Right away, and you think, how in 4 or 5 comments did it work itself from what I meant to this?
Yeah.
And that's very disheartening to me. So that was a good answer, Bill. Yours better than mine.
What is your favorite sound? Gina, I'm going to go to you. What sound do you love the most?
Well, other than grandkids laughing and running down the stairs in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
I love early in the morning when the sun's just starting to come up and you can hear the sounds every morning of the birds and in the breeze through the trees. I mean, just there's something about that early morning calmness and sounds that I like. And because I've become more of a morning person, I hear those more than I used to.
Yeah, you say you've switched.
We switched a little bit. We really have. It's kind of interesting.
But I'm trying to get back to a more normal schedule. I did.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, your favorite sound?
Well, here we are in the middle of Waco, and it's the Aggie band playing The Spirit of Aggie Land.
Whoop.
I even got my maroon dress on today.
You do have your maroon dress on. Oh, man. Okay, no, I get that too.
Well, look, I've got a green tie for tonight.
And you do have a green tie to be here in Waco. So what is your least favorite sound?
My least favorite sound? People fighting.
Oh, my
People
gosh.
arguing.
Me too. I don't like it.
Conflict,
I don't like conflict. I don't mind conflict if it's constructive.
With me.
I don't mind conflict if it's constructive, but I'm the same way. I don't like it when people raise their voices and fight with one another, and especially when nothing gets resolved.
Yeah. Right. What other profession would you have liked to try? In other words, just clean slate.
I made a decision when I was a senior in college to not take an Air Force commission, and I wish I had done that. I had the opportunity, but the Air Force said that there was going to be a wait because they were long on pilots after Vietnam. And I watched what some of my other friends did when they went in the Air Force, and I thought I should, I should have been willing to wait 18 months so I could go in and serve our country. I mean, I have served it this way for 10 years, but it's not the same, certainly, as serving in the Air Force. I wish I could have done that. I probably would have made it a career. Maybe my roommate, Jimmy Jackson, from my sophomore year, became a general. I thought if Jimmy could do it, I could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And I don't even know him.
He's a great guy.
Trust me.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is, General. So what about you? Anything you would have liked to have done?
Well, my parents were both in education, and so I always wanted to do that. My brother and sister and I are all educators, but I always kind of wanted to be a nurse. But as I got older and I realized the math and science that was going to take, I don't think I probably would have been able to do it. But I always wanted to be a flight attendant too, and I still think that would be fun. But really, I really always wanted to be a teacher, and that's what I did for almost 20 years.
Oh, that's good. What profession do you know you would not want to do?
I wouldn't want to be an engineer.
Oh, I'd love to. I mean, I'm a part-time engineer now, I think.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if you read my post about fixing the inverters on my solar system, but what would
I
I
apologize
go
to
check that
Facebook
out.
Land for all of his posts about the solar stuff.
what would I not want to do? Goodness, I'm almost game to try anything. I would say this: I wouldn't want to be a Republican president today because the media is so hard on you, and the left is so hard on you. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything I wouldn't do. I mean, I've done. I started working when I was 9 years old, and I was helping to push cattle into a dipping vat, and worked for branding crews and driven tractors and fixed fence, and so probably nothing I wouldn't try once.
I've always said Bill's kind of a Renaissance man. That he's his personality type is he's a learner, and he's always if somebody comes up with a new topic, he's right on his computer trying to learn as much as he can about it. He was that way in the oil and gas business. He early on would go and visit with the geologists and the people that took the overnight reports to learn the whole business, and I understand that about him now, but. I don't think we've ever had anything at home that he couldn't fix, ever.
That's good.
I mean, he's just he knows a lot or a little bit about a lot.
It's always good to have a man around that's handy.
I don't like to do I don't like to do sheetrock though.
You won't.
Or
You
wallpaper.
draw the line.
That's right. No sheetrocking, no
It's
wallpaper.
some of that construction stuff. Well, one last question. What do you want to hear God say to you as you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well done, good and faithful servant.
Same.
Yeah. Well, you have been an amazing public servant for us
Thank you.
in this district, and we thank you so much. Bill Flores, Gina Flores, thank you so much for your time. It's been a delight having you here.
It has been
Thank you
fun.
so much.
All the best in retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.